Hi there, it's me, Kate, Extreme Retriever, linguist, founder of Lingua and Lingua Plus. And today I have something interesting for you. Hmm. Have you ever noticed that there are people who speak a foreign language, but you would say that they sound like native? Maybe like they are native, so maybe they're spies. And then there are a lot of people who've spent a lot of time, many years, learning a particular language and they still sound too foreign. Maybe you're one of them. It's okay. So today we'll have a look at how to become more native-like, yeah, in your flow of speech. It's not just about words. There's so much more to it. So first of all, ask yourself a few questions. For instance, pronunciation, intonation. How do you sound? What about your melody and rhythm? Do you do you transfer melody and rhythm from the original language that you speak, like another language? Do you try to match melody and rhythm of the spoken language? What happens there? Then, of course, very peculiar one, when you pause, when you hesitate, what do you say? Or do you have any particular sounds that you use? It's like pauses, filler words. Do you use sounds from your native language or languages? Or do you actually use filler words from the target language? What happens there? What is your first reaction? Like go-to sound? Then certainly collocations, word choice. Do you translate directly from your native language, or do you try to learn, set phrases, idioms, and can you actually use them in appropriate circumstances? And then a very important one that quite often is overlooked, it's body language, expressiveness, mimic, like you're mimicking like how your face mimics. Mm, what happens there? Does your body match your target language? Is your body trained to behave, to move in the target language and culture? Does your face reflect your thoughts and emotions in the target language? What happens there? See, if all these questions lead you to your native language, that's all right. We can work on that. So first of all, talking about your pronunciation. So pronunciation is important. However, I've noticed I've trained a lot of pronunciation, especially universal pronunciation and all that. I've noticed that people pay too much attention to particular sounds, like little sounds and words, instead of intonation, rhythm, melody. It's like, later on. But what you need to really keep in mind that our brain, like according to different studies, our brain picks up intonation patterns. And what happens, even if you pronounce sounds incorrectly, still natives will be picking up the intonation. What you need to do, of course, you need to go to YouTube, exercises, whatever you want, find the speech, the flow in the target language, and then try to mimic intonation. Don't think about words at that point. Try to copy the rhythm. Try to copy the melody. It's like in English, for instance, Romance language speakers, it's quite difficult to switch to the pattern of English. And I have different exercises, phrases like, I want to go to school. I want to go to school. I want to go to school. So you start playing, I want to go to school. You start playing with accents, where you put accents in the sentence. And then when it goes down, when it goes up, like fall, rise, rise, fall, rise, and so on. And as soon as you start catching it, it gets a little bit easier because you indeed start sounding more like native. One of also good challenges if you speak a language with different accents, different dialects, you need to see whether you want to stick to a particular one or you'd like to adapt and shift and switch. For instance, with Spanish, when I learned Spanish, it was more local continental Spanish from Spain, starting with Salamanca, and then going more like to Galicia, Santiago de Compostela, hablando más como mezcla de español y portugués, and so on. But with Spanish, I I did my best to stick to Spanish intonation, hablando así, todo. But when I got to Latin America, I noticed this enormous variety of accents and dialects. I said, no, I still want to keep my original one. It was like for a long time as well with my British one, up to the point that in Europe or in US, people wouldn't get me. So I would start opening my mouth because if I just keep my diaphragm and start speaking, I know it will get me, right? You know what I mean, the struggle. So when I go to Argentina, I noticed how they're speaking Italian, like it's like Italians speaking Spanish. And given that they speak both languages, for me it was so confusing. I said, no. I'll prefer still to stick to Spanish instead of like really mixing up Italian and Spanish in my head. And it's so interesting, yeah, to observe how different nations, different groups of people switch their intonations. It's like Italians never, in Argentina, Italians, in previous century, never managed to catch Spanish intonation and decided to speak Italian intonation, but with Spanish words. I would say don't do that if you want to sound more like native like, right? Then, of course, when we talk about direct translation and other videos I shared, please don't translate in your head. And there are different ways how to learn to do it. But if, for instance, you're a Spanish speaker and you say, yo tengo 23 años. I'm not, but somebody else. So yo tengo 23 años. And then you will be translating like, I have 23 years. This is wrong, right? So you need to learn these collocations, those phrases. So like in German, for instance, ich mache ein Foto, right? So like probably you will translate directly like I make a photo. I take a photo, right? So you need to play around there, getting those collocations, those expressions. And if for intonation, we said, okay, you need to find an exercise, listen to a native speaker and then repeat specifically your intonation, rhythm, melody, right, instead of words. So here, what you need to do, decide for yourself, maybe it's 5 expressions per day, 5 expressions per week, but find those expressions and learn them, especially those expressions that you use occasionally. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to learn something like, oh, out of the blue, whatever, that you will rarely use. You need to find those expressions that correspond to your context. I'm sure right now with AI, if you go to one of these here AI apps and ask like, look, I frequently use these phrases in my vocabulary, like in everyday life. Can you find collocations in the target language or that are also frequently used? Probably it'll say yes and send you a few. But in order to do that, like about like your frequent expressions, you need to observe yourself and write down which expressions you use frequently. And that takes time, it takes observation. And then also talking about self-observation, I mentioned already pauses and filler words. A lot of educators first push you to pay attention to collocations, your right words, don't translate. But I typically say, wait, watch, natives, listen. What happens when a native person is surprised in their language, or scared, or hesitant, angry. What kind of sounds coming out from their mouth? Um, for instance, in French, this but the answer for everything. Right? In Spanish, it's like pues entonces, like entonces, hey, hostia, all of that. And English typically, well, like in Italian, but so all of this must be adapted by your brain. You can't just take some of those emotional expressions and sounds from your native language and insert them in a new language. It will sound very strange. And sometimes these expressions also mix, and maybe what means good in your language will mean something completely opposite in the other language. So don't risk it. Just put them down, see what they say, or if they say nothing, what they do, maybe with their body language, right? So the exercise will be to observe, to listen, maybe, find as well on YouTube AI, ask your foreign friends what they do, how they express those little things, and practice. Practice and see how you can start replacing, those pauses, those moments with natural fillers, natural sounds in that language. And then, of course, here, speaking of body language, sure, what you need to do, you need as well to observe. You need to see what happens to you when you speak in the language. It's taken me a lot of time, and I'm still working on that because, like, I'm naturally expressive, so it took me a lot of years to go down with my English, like British English. Still, I use a lot of hands. I know. Uh, Quando comincio a parlare in italiano, già gesti, gesti, gesti qua. Um, it's like another language, right? In Italian, so the gestures. But what you need to know that there have been a few studies specifically on gestures and mimics, saying that we also get emotional like accents, meaning that if you're learning a language but you don't get all these emotional cultural scripts, body language, in a foreign language, then your body language, your expressions, like emotional expressiveness won't match your speech flow. And if it doesn't match your speech flow, somewhere in the brain of the natives, it will create this confusion where they will be like, something is off. No, this person is like, whatever it is, right? But there will be this mismatch. What we're trying to do is, in fact, learn through like cultural intelligence or cross-cultural psychology how representative of different cultures, different languages behave, express their emotions, and their body, their face. So, for instance, we know Italians here, gestures, another language. Then, if we look with you at, let's say, English speakers, they're talking to you, and then they may nod and smile, right, to show engagement. Probably you've noticed this, but let's say Japanese ones would be looking at you and just nodding, just being polite without, interrupting, right? So what you need to do, you need to watch and you need to mirror, like engage your mirror neurons and see indeed what happens, how you also feel in that. Because this is also part of developing your language alter ego, that you start embodying a different personality, one of your different personalities in that language. You will be like, no, but this is unnatural, this is a mask. No, it's part of you, just one of the facets of you, because you're a complex creature. It's absolutely normal that you start doing something different. It helps your brain, it helps your nervous system. It's good eventually because it also helps your neuroplasticity, your adaptability. So this is a recap, 5-step action plan. You need to start mimicking native intonation, not just your pronunciation. Intonation, please, 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 please. All right, then second, you need to pick up those for you frequent collocations, set phrases, idioms, right, without direct translation. 3, fillers. filler words, pauses, your expressions of emotions in in your target language. Learn them, practice them, see how you say them without thinking. It will take time, but you'll get there. Four, body language, right? Anything about body language, mimicking, learn how to do that. Watch videos, movies, see what they do, practice with a mirror daily, especially if you're out of the country. And then give yourself time, right? So, like the fifth one, it's more about immersion, cultural immersion. If you are out of the country of the target language, then surround yourself with the language and culture. I've talked about this in other videos. Check them out. But the idea is that you get yourself into the new language and culture, and it becomes natural for you. Like you start living a life in a new language and see what happens. Take 7 days, measure, see the difference. Take a month, see the difference, journal, and then gradually you will notice how you become more and more native-like, and you may feel even slightly differently, right? You will move slightly differently and see how you like it. Okay, good. If you like this video, share, like, subscribe. Also, if you have your own stories, comment. I'd love for our community to discuss, grow, and then, prepare for new videos. All right. I'll see you. Bye.